All right, let's talk about one of the most intense, heart-pounding moments in all of sailboat racing, the start. It often just feels like complete and utter chaos out there. But what if I told you there's actually a system, a simple, repeatable way to turn all that chaos into your biggest advantage? Okay, let's get into it.
You know the feeling, right? It's a jumble of shouting, boats everywhere, near misses, and you're just kind of hoping for the best. But here's the thing. It is not a lottery. It's a puzzle. And in the next few minutes, we're going to break down the two critical decisions and the one mental model you need to solve it every single time you hit the line.
So, the first piece of this puzzle, it's actually surprisingly simple. Before you even think about your timing or finding a gap in the line, you have to answer one basic question. Which end of the starting line are you aiming for?
Now, here's the thing. Race committees, they try their best to set a perfectly square line, but I'm telling you, 99% of the time, it's not perfect. And as you can see here, even a tiny angle in that line means one end is physically closer to that first mark. It might not look like much, but on a race course, that's a huge head start that's just baked right into the geometry of the course. It's free distance.
Okay, so if there's free distance just sitting there for the taking, how do you find it? Well, the good news is you don't need a fancy compass or a bunch of complicated electronics. There are a couple of really simple, really effective ways to do it. Let's start with the one you can do all by yourself. This little trick is called shooting the breeze, and you should absolutely make this part of your pre-race routine. You just sail out to the middle of the line, point your boat straight into the wind till your sails are flapping, and then just look. Where's your bow pointing? It's a super quick, super reliable check that instantly tells you which side of that starting triangle is shorter.
Now, if you happen to have a buddy out there with you, you can try what's called the buddy system. It's simple. One of you lines up at the pin, the other at the committee boat, and you both start sailing on a signal. Whoever crosses ahead, well, there's your answer. It's for sure a definitive test, but honestly, that shoot the breeze method is going to be your go-to technique that you can count on race in, race out.
Okay, so you found the favorite end of the line. Decisions made, right? Easy peasy. Well, not so fast, because sometimes the strategically correct place to start is actually at the wrong end of the line. So let's just imagine the pin end is hugely favored, but you know there's a strong current over on the right side of the course that you've got to get into. Well, if you start down at the pin, even with that advantage, you might get totally pinned in by other boats and not be able to tack over to the right. In that case, you might actually choose to give up that little bit of line bias to go win the much, much bigger strategic game.
So we've talked about where to start, but that's really only half the story. Now we get to the single most important rule of starting. It's a rule that pretty much overrides everything else we've just talked about.
And honestly, here's the absolute bottom line. It doesn't matter one bit if you picked the perfect, most biased end of the line if you're stuck in the second or third row. Your number one non-negotiable priority is to be in the front row when that gun goes off. End of story. So why is that front row so important? Two words: clear air. That clean, undisturbed wind that lets your boat just take off and get up to speed. Being back in the pack is like being stuck in rush hour traffic. You're just choking on everybody else's turbulent, dirty air. And getting to that front row, and more importantly, staying there, it all comes down to one critical skill: boat handling at slow speeds. And to do that, you need a mental map.
Which brings us to the real heart of this whole thing, a simple mental framework called the start box. This is your target zone. This is the piece of real estate on the race course that you need to own in those final, crucial minutes before the start.
Okay, so let's picture this on the water. The start box is just a simple parallelogram. The front of the box is the start line itself. The sides of the box are the lay lines from each end, and the back of the box is about 2 boat lengths behind the line. That's it. That's your zone. Your entire goal in the last 2 minutes is to get to your spot inside this box and just stay there.
You know, the easiest way to understand how to stay in the box is actually to learn about the 3 chaotic, dangerous zones outside of it. So let's break them down and give them some names, shall we?
First up, right next to the committee boat, you have Wally World. This place is a giant theme park of crashes, yelling, and just general mayhem. It's where boats get piled up, rules get complicated, and things get broken. It's a scary, dangerous place, and you do not want a ticket to this ride. Stay away from Wally World. Then, way over on the other side, if you drift too far below the pin end lay line, you enter the Dear God zone. And it's called that because if you end up here, you are literally praying for one of 2 miracles. Dear God, please give me a wind shift to get back up to the line. Or, Dear God, please let me cross this entire fleet on port tack. Yeah, neither one is very likely to happen. Once you're here, you've pretty much lost all control.
And finally, there's the most common trap of all, the area just behind the start box, which we're going to call coals, like the supermarket. Why? Because if you start back here, you are standing in the slowest checkout line you can imagine, watching everybody in the front row get served and leave while you're just stuck there, waiting your turn to finally get some clear air.
See how that works? If you just focus on avoiding Wally World, the Dear God Zone, and the Kohl's checkout line, you naturally force yourself to master being in the start box. And that brings everything we've learned together into one simple winning routine.
But first, let's completely redefine what a good start actually is. It's not the moment you cross the line. No, a successful start is the moment you have clean, clear air and the freedom to sail your boat wherever you want to go. If you start in the second row, your race doesn't truly begin until you finally escape all that bad air.
And this right here is the whole system. Step 1. Before the race even starts, get out there and shoot the breeze to find the line bias. Step 2. Take a look at the course, think about the strategy, and pick your spot on the line. And then, Step 3, for those final 2 minutes, your only job, your only focus, is to get to that spot in the start box and own it.
So, the next time you're out there on the water, getting ready for a race, ask yourself this question. By focusing on the bias, thinking about your strategy, and owning your space in that start box, you're not just getting across the line anymore. You're giving yourself the freedom to start winning the race from the very first second.